We welcome all the students, faculty, parents and their guardians and also the esteemed guests for the second part of the first session. I'm sure you enjoyed the morning session of the ASCO Orientation ceremony. Also, I now request for today's show we have with us Mr. Pankaj Pachauri, Managing Editor and Senior Anchor NDTV 24/7. Also, we have with us Ms. Suhasini Weber. She is the Senior
Okay, no panic. She's all right.
We welcome all the students, faculty, parents, guardians and esteemed dignitaries to the second half of our session. I'm sure you enjoyed the morning session of ASCO's orientation ceremony. Continuing with our interactive sessions, we would like to inform you about our dignitaries for today. In our today's session, we have Mr. Pankaj Pachauri, who is the Managing Editor and Special Project, NDTV. And we also have amongst us Ms. Suhasini Haidar, who is the primetime anchor with CNN IBN. Along with them,
we also will have in a short while with us, we also have with us Mr. Dilip Cherian, co-founder, and consultancy partner of Perfect Relations, South Asia's largest image management consultancy. To begin with, Mr. Pachauri has worked in print and broadcast foundation across 3 continents for the last 20 years. He has worked as a correspondent in Delhi, Hong Kong, London and Boston for many long years. I would now request Professor R.K. Dagan to kindly welcome Mr. Pachauri.
Once again, a very good afternoon to you. We had a long day. I express my regrets for the introduction part because Tanya is after effects of NDTV, if I am not wrong. The other day I talked to her on the Facebook at about 9:30 or 10 o'clock and she said I am leaving for Bombay at 11:30 and I'll be back by 5:30 in the morning and 7:30 I'll come and look you up in the office. I said, the whole night you're not sleeping. She says that's the way a journalist works and I was very proud of her. She has been with me since morning and if she's a little unwell, there's nothing to worry about it. This is a part of life. I'm sure she'll be all right soon and back here. I take this opportunity to welcome all my 3 esteemed, very eminent media personalities, Mr. Pankaj Pachauri, Mr. Dilip Cherian and Suhasini Haidar. Please give them a very big hand. I really do not have to introduce all 3 of them. You know them very well. Most of you are seeing Mr. Pachauri every day. Even last night he was reading the news and 4:30 today he's got to go again. Mr. Dilip Cherian probably is one of the very known figures and quite a lot of students of mine have been going there to do internship and most of you, the new batch that has come, will be looking towards him to work as an intern or may again join him, one of the finest organizations to improve your image and everything possible that you can learn there. Suhasini Haidar, well, every day she's been seen on the television reading news with Rajdeep. She's one of those experts in international affairs. She has a commitment today. She just finished her interview with Mr. S.M. Krishna and I think you are one of the lucky ones to have all 3 of them, the starting of the new batch which has come here, to get an opportunity right ab initio to meet all 3 of them. Once again, please put your hands together for all 3 of them. Now, before I take any more time, since all of them have got big commitments, I'll request Mr. Pachauri to come and address you, after which, since he has to leave, we'll have the question and answer session with him, and then I'll request other speakers. Mr. Pachauri.
I would request the director.
I'm so sorry in this little kind of incident that took place. Things went awry. It is my obligation, it is my duty, it is my honor to welcome all three of our esteemed speakers with a small little Indian traditional welcome, which I'm sure they'll accept.
Welcome all of you, parents, students, and especially those who are foolhardy enough to get admission into a journalism course. Mr. Dagan, who is also my Facebook friend and quite active in this, was telling me there are about 900 students in communication department of Amity, which is quite a big number given the future of the media industry. I will not take you much of your time. I will not bore you with what I've gone through and what my colleagues like Suhasini have gone through, or Dilip, who's been actually our guru in this field. Believe you me, when you become journalist, there's one thing you are going to really need is a good PR friend. And Dilip has always been there by my side for more than a decade. If we look at the figures in India right now, and you have to be very careful when you are studying and preparing to be a journalist or be in media, what they don't teach you in media schools today is the business of media. Mr. Dagan just told me they have started a management course this year, an MBA in media management. And that's the second such course in the country. Because what's becoming more and more important lately is the management aspect of media. India today has about 76,000 newspapers and publications, about 500 television channels, out of which about 100 are news channels, and in different languages, almost in 18 languages we have news channels these days. There were 2 Bhojpuri channels started last year, and in the coming days there are going to be another 100 to 150 channels starting, and that's what the applications are pending with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. I'm giving you all these details that you should know what you are getting into. Journalism is not only getting a big byline in a newspaper or a magazine, or becoming a face of a channel, an anchor. 90% people who are in journalism today, people don't know about them. They are the sub-editors, they are the technicians, they are video editors, they are the people who do the production. So when you get into journalism, be very sure that your aim to get into journalism is not to become a star, but to become a good journalist. And a good journalist in any place, in any organization, is an asset. That's what we should all aim for. When I came into journalism, I didn't come into journalism to become a talk show host. I came into journalism because I thought with Dilip that we can change the world. And we did. And we are still doing. So that's why journalism is such a good job that after 25 years I can tell you that what I joined journalism for, I'm still doing that. I'm still thinking you can change the world. I'm still trying to do that. So to become an editor, to become an anchor, to become a celebrated reporter should not be your aim. Your aim should be to be a good journalist. And once you are a good journalist, then all these things will come your way. Money will come your way, fame will come your way, ministers will come your way, film stars will come your way. I mean, that's, I think, as you call it, collateral damage and occupational hazard. That you have to meet Amir Khan like Suhasini in the morning and SM Krishna in the evening. And that's part of the job. And that will happen only when you realize that you are not in journalism just to do that. You are there to do good stories. You are there to be the voice of the people who we think are disadvantaged in the country. You are there to improve basically how this country is run, how we live, which involves business journalism also. And where you should go from here if you are thinking of journalism. The latest studies, I just got something here, is that in the coming days, the most growth in media is going to be in the internet area. So don't think that I don't think that you should think that all of you should get into television, or 30% growth in the next 5 years where the jobs are. Gaming, that's also media and entertainment. 32% growth in the next 5 years. Animation, video graphics. In television, you see my face when I'm doing a program, and you don't see the face of people who are actually making the video graphics which come in the background. And people tell us that that particular bumper or thing was very good. And that person must have worked on it for 15 days or something, whose name no one knows. And I thank them today. Music, 16% growth in the next 5 years. Radio, the government is going to going to give licenses to 800 FM stations in the next 2 years. 800 FM stations, you can imagine. It's going to change the audioscape of India. Think of that. Think of getting into radio. I've worked in radio. I've worked in radio which is on shortwave in UK. I've worked in radio on FM, which was in US. And I always find that radio is actually stronger than a written word and a spoken word on television. Radio people remember. People still come to me after 15 years and say that you went to Kashmir and did this story and that story whenever I go there. Print. Print is going to be the slowest growing industry in the media in the next 5 years. Only 9% growth. But if you want to get into print, you get into a specialization in print. Become a writer on autos. Become a writer on business, on markets. Not chasing the prime ministers and the ministers and all that. Think of that. That's where the growth is going to come from. There are so many magazines which are pending for licenses, which are all actually in this niche area of print. Television, those of you who want to get into television, there's good news that television would be very strong, about 15% of growth in the next 5 years. But again, you have to think very hard what kind of television you want to do. As I told you, about more than 100 television stations. If you want to get into regional television, that's the best. I was told that people take up one language, which is mandatory for the students here. Take a foreign language, take an Indian language. There will be growth in Odia television. There will be growth in Punjabi television. There will be growth in Kannadiga television. These are the areas where the growth is going to be. And if you make up your mind now, you'll get a job faster and you'll know exactly what you would be or what you want to be in 3 years' time. Films, don't join films. Don't try to get into films at this time of our economy. Films are losing money. The success rate of films in India is only about 8% these days. And the way the film industry is functioning, I don't see much scope for film industry for so many people who want to get into that. All the Khans are now 47 plus. So if you want to become a hero and a star, then it's all right. But if you want to get into filmmaking, it's very difficult. So these are the areas: television, radio, FM radio at that, internet and gaming. Those are the areas I think you should prepare yourself for. And along with that, always keep in mind that journalism is not just another business. I keep telling to my friends in CEO seminars and CEO roundtables that the difference in journalism is that it's not just another pursuit. You have to have something inside you that I want to do this. I promise you that if you want to make money, please go and join MIT's MBA course. You'll make more money there. There's not much money in journalism, not anymore. Whatever money was there, whatever gold rush was there, it's coming to an end. All those people who had to gain from this profession have gained. Now it's a time for consolidation. Big media companies are consolidating. They are hiving off companies, they are selling off companies, and that process has started. I think the gold rush in media is over. So don't come to media for money. Come to media if you want to do something. If you want to be a very good sports reporter or a sports broadcaster. If you want to tell people how in a growing economy people should invest in our stock market, in our equities market, in our mutual funds market. Get into journalism for that and prepare for that. And that's the only practical advice I can give you guys. Thank you.
We'll have a combined question hour session. I'd like to highlight here that Mr. Pachauri has brought out certain very important aspects as to what media. Keeping that in mind and carrying out a survey, we started about a few courses this year. And the first one is, like it talked about, graphics, animation. We started MSc Visual Communication. The radio is the fastest growing medium, and we have this year introduced a new course, postgraduate diploma in radio broadcast and radio management. And of course, with the growing market in the media, we have introduced MBA Media Management. And I'm glad that all those students who have sought admission here in these courses are today sitting here, and they must have made a note of it, that journalism demands passion and commitment, and just not join this profession for money only. It'll come by as you work hard. I now take this opportunity to request Mr. Dilip Cherian. I'm afraid we could not read out the series of our esteemed guests because of the little incident that took place. I would request them to give a few words about themselves when they come on the dais. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see so many parents and so many students enthusiastically waiting to start on a new course of life. I welcome you to the journey which many of us started many years ago, and I hope that it is as enjoyable, full of surprises and interesting times as the Chinese would say. Chinese might be here soon at the rate they are going, so I hope all of you are aware of what the options are and where life is. I have a long prepared speech, but I have the joyful announcement to make that I am not about to make that speech, simply because though my colleague Anup worked very hard on it, we've all decided mutually here that we will give brief 5-minute speeches and then allow you to ask questions. I guess that will keep some of you awake in this post-lunch session and some of you alert, and maybe some of you the opportunity to actually hear the speech you want. I've spent a lifetime in journalism, and then I've now decided to run a communications company. I do what is called image management, a mixture of public relations and lobbying, a mixture which not anybody that I know understands, because I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm supposed to be a reasonably pioneering company in this business. Fortunately, I have good colleagues, and good colleagues ensure that they come up with the ideas to make sure that the future is secure, and the business we are in is about both media as well as about management, but not exactly the kind of course that that is being introduced this year in media management. The advice I have for when you start like this is on the lines of what Pankaj said. You have to have a dream. You can't come here wanting to have just a career. All of those who are sitting here hoping to have a secure salary at the end of studying this course are in for a rude surprise. Your colleagues from across the road are likely to get larger checks than you to start with. They're also likely to have a few easier years initially to start with. After all, after a few years it all evens out, but the fact is that media at the start and media career, whether it's in public relations, whether it is in lobbying, whether it is in advertising, whether it's in hardcore media, is all about extremely hard work at the very start. So those of you who think that you've come in to see your names in the light, in the arc lights, are going to be sorely disappointed. Also, as Pankaj just mentioned, the fact is that in the media industry, it's a bit like the iceberg. You only see 10% above the surface of the water. 90% of people are doing their work and getting paid for it, but they're never seen. So the realization that you have to come to is that it doesn't matter. If you want to be in the media industry, as long as you are convinced that you want to be part of this huge iceberg, which is communications, advertising, PR, events, the whole gamut of it, and hardcore media, for 90% of you, the comforting factor, and I would say it is a comforting factor, is that you will live lives of anonymity, but hopefully will be able to contribute to society. This is where the edge is. In whatever sense you look at media, if you have a meaningful career in the media, you will be making an impact on society in some form or the other. Today, for example, when I stand here, I am busy juggling with another colleague of mine here a press release on a new computer which is going to be introduced in India's villages. So it is a 1 laptop per child computer that we are talking about, and we are working on this release even as we talk. We are changing things on the BlackBerry. So you are making communication steps which ensure that society is changed even as you are working. And this is the joy of being in the media business. The media business is a business which impacts ultimately the minds of people, the minds of citizens and the minds of those who govern those citizens. Therefore you have influence, therefore you have a role, and therefore you have an opportunity. But the choice is whether you want to take that opportunity or whether you're here because you want a salary check. If it's a salary check you want, then You must look for media management as an option. Perhaps that will give you a larger salary check. But if it is excellence you're pursuing, if you're pursuing a career which makes a difference to your life and to the lives of those around you, this is a great choice. You've come to the right place, and I hope that you have a great time studying it. When I was looking at this audience of large numbers of students, the question that struck me was, what is it that I can tell you which might be useful, which might help you to start your course right? And I have only a few things to say, and I'll stop immediately after I've said those. The first thing is, please spend your time reading. For all those who can't read, who are bored by reading, you're in the wrong place. Watching is not good enough. YouTube and surfing the net is not good enough. That's the bad news. The news is that you have to start reading. And read, secondly, outside your comfort zone. If all your life is spent reading HT City, then examine your head and start reading something more useful. It's not good enough, and you're not going to get anywhere by reading some color supplement of a magazine, of a newspaper. You might as well read the property ads, and you won't get that either. The third thing is, examine your spelling and your grammar. All of us brought up on Nokia or whichever other T9 system that you use, think that spelling is something that you have finally got liberation from. The bad news is that you haven't, and spell checks don't help you determine whether hair is spelled H-E-I-R or H-A-I-R. So spell checks don't help either. If you don't have a language skill, and I don't mean just English language skills, Pankaj spoke of multiple languages, and in fact most of you need to be ambidextrous as far as languages are concerned, and we are talking Indian languages to start with. If you don't master writing, reading and grammar and spelling, you're not going to find a place in the media industry, irrespective of whether you are expected to hold a lamp, unless there's that job possibly. You know, the guys who used to hold lights for cameras, I don't think those jobs exist anymore, right? Now the cameras have lights themselves. So even that job is out for you. But unless you recognize that it is language, whether it is a visual language, a written language, a verbal language, if you don't have mastery of that, you cannot be in media. So please, if I were to leave you with one thought, it is this thought, which is that if you have to be in the media business, master the use of communication tools, i.e. the basic communication tool being language. Thank you very much. I'll stop here and wait for questions.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. This surely was very enlightening.
I would now invite Ms. Suhasini Haidar to please come up on the stage and address the gathering.
Okay, hello and good afternoon. What makes this afternoon more interesting for me is I'm speaking in front of my first boss. Dilip actually started me out in the world of mass media. Before that I was a statistics student and completely convinced I was going to work on investment analysis or something which I'm sure would have made me a lot more money. But I have to tell both you and my first boss, no regrets about having joined the world of communication, because I do think, as Pankaj said, that the rewards in communication ensure that even 20 years down the line you will wake up, you will read a newspaper and you'll say, thank God I'm in this business and in no other. So really, to all of you who are looking forward to a career in mass media, I can say you couldn't have made a better choice. Perhaps you couldn't have made a better choice, but it does come at a bad time. There is a sense in the market today, which most of you would be aware of, that the media business is hunkering down, that we are looking at a media business that hasn't grown, even though the economy seems to have come out of whatever roadblocks and what it was stuck in for the last couple of years. The media business itself is not seeing that kind of growth. I can assure you, I think that is really the good news in all of this, because there is a sense in a lot of us that journalists, for example, are generalists. that the people who can't get into other professions for some reason can always do journalism, because of course we can read and write, right? And what does it take to put on a bit of makeup and get in front of a television camera? But I think the good news of the last few years of people looking much more closely at the people they hire is that it is only people who really want to be in this profession. And I'm not just talking about journalism here, but also about PR, also about mass communication, also about advertising and all the rest, that people are taking a much closer look at the quality of the candidate who's coming in. So most of you, I mean, I think all of you who have made it to a college as prestigious as Amity, have a head start in that sense. You're not just walking into a sea of people also applying. I always have this joke with kids who join our company and come to me after a few days and want to know what the future will hold. You know, how long do I have to stick around? I can tell you, you'd asked me to say a bit about myself. I can tell you I started out not reporting. I started out below the iceberg and was there for a good 7 to 8 years before I actually appeared in front of television. Now that would be considered ridiculous today. I mean, if I tell somebody who's joining my company that, you know what, you need to consolidate, you need to learn your writing skills, you need to work with seniors, and do that for about 7 to 8 years before I can put you in front of a camera, they just look at me like I was stark raving mad. So instead, when kids come up to me and say, ma'am, I really want to read the news, I start by saying, but of course you must read the news. You must read at least 6 to 8 newspapers a day. You must read about 8 to 10 magazines a week. You must start the day with reading what's happened in the rest of the world overnight over the internet, and continue in that way. And certainly one day you will be able to read the news to the world if that's still what you are looking for. But I think what I'm really trying to say is just underline the points that both Pankaj and Dilip have said, that you aren't going to be able to go much further until you look within yourselves and create the best that you can be. And you might be surprised by how much work you still need to do in a world that continues to change. Every day the world changes, every day the news changes. If you're not abreast with it, you're going to be in some kind of trouble. For example, when I joined the profession, I joined television straight away. I didn't do the normal route of print to television. And it used to really annoy me that print guys had it so easy. You know, you'd go to Kashmir or you'd go to some other part of the country to do a report. You'd finish shooting your report all day. You'd finish your interviews. You'd come home. I mean, or come back to the hotel you're all staying at. And the print guys had just poured themselves their first drink, because they'd of course file their story by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and they were ready for an evening of relaxation. Over the years, I got my revenge because the internet came in. And now all these people were filing their story for the newspaper tomorrow and then beginning to update their stories for the internet. That's another big trend that I think all of you really need to watch for, that there's just no boundaries anymore between print, internet, and in fact television. We're all working at all those mediums together. In fact, I think all of us should be paid 3 times the salary just because we do that. But nobody is about to do that, so get used to that idea. Inherently built in that is the idea that you have to keep up with technology. I hear from a lot of people that I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do that, and there's just never an excuse. If you're in a business that involves technology, there is no reason why you can't use the computer. You don't know how to use, have access to the internet wherever you go. You, for example, get into television but don't know how to work a camera. I'm sorry, I have news for you. I really think that you need to not just learn how to use the camera, you need to know how to put what you shoot onto a computer. You need to put that up and send it via FTP. These are just bits of technology that you just have to keep yourself abreast with. There's no getting away from that. I think the trends of the industry have made a few things very clear. The first, I think Pankaj referred to it in some detail, so I won't go into it, is regionalization. The idea that national players are going to look more and more to regional markets. And if you have a regional specialization, you're already ahead of everyone else. If you know an area better than somebody else does, you're already a little further in the game than everyone else. Watch out for that. The second is the development of a niche. It's not just enough to read. You need to know what you want to read about. because you're really not going to be able to take in everything. I would suggest to each of you, you start with a subject that you really do enjoy. For me, it's always been international affairs. But it doesn't have to be. In fact, I think very few people find that very interesting anymore. But find the subject that you like, find the latest books that come out on the subject, find the oldest books that come out on the subject, keep abreast with the articles that come out on that subject. If you make a habit of doing that today, I can tell you 10 years from now, you will have a niche that you will be really proud of. And that holds not just, as I said, for the journalism sphere of things, but every part of mass communication. Another trend is really the platforms are increasing. As I said, print, internet, and television, they're all platforms for you. But those platforms are now multifold, because there's the telephone that's really going to take over. In the future, most people are going to get their news, get their television, get their print, everything off their telephone. We're already, most of us, checking headlines on our telephones this morning. So look for that, because those platforms of deliverance might end up being something you would like to work in, something you'd like to understand. And finally, what we really are looking at is an era of consolidation. That consolidation that is a feared word really in the industry will also mean good things, will also mean maybe a revival of old values. Maybe the larger the corporation, the more they're able to, take in people and use them as we would in the past, give people different niches, give them different specializations and allow them to grow in that sense. We don't know how the future is going to pan out, but consolidation is certainly something you should be looking at closely. And finally, the trend, if you like, is really the oldest thing in the book, and that's one of quality. Being the best that you can be, giving a job everything you can possibly give it. I don't think you can go much further than this stage, and Professor Gargar was talking about the idea of this young lady who literally went through the day and night working, and said that's what the industry involves, and that's absolutely true. I mean, you'll end up finding that in this business you'll be able to do that with a smile on your face. But whether or not you're smiling at the end of the day, the truth is that this industry exacts from you more than 24 hours from your day. So be prepared to give that, be prepared to enjoy the ride, and in fact, don't look really so much at that destination, because in the media business, more than anything else, it's the ride that makes up for everything else. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Your insights were truly inspirational. We now move forward to the question and answer session, as already informed.
I have already received a huge amount of questions, and I think it has triggered your imagination so well that the first question that I come across from most of the speakers is they started getting worried. The salaries are very low. The questions pertain to that only. The first question goes to Mr. Dilip Cherian. According to you, the future of advertising, I don't know whether you say it is not so good. How good is it as a part of the media industry, and how it's going to be in the next 10 years?
It's a tough question to answer, how good the advertising industry is going to be in the next 10 years. The basic fact you need to remember is that as long as there are things to sell, and as long as the customer has decisions to make and she has a free will, there's going to be space for advertising. As long as there's space for advertising, there is space and need for media. The nature of media which advertising uses will also change. But then, as Suhasini and Pankaj have already said, media is itself in a shifting situation today. The gears are shifting. So to answer your question, advertising has a great future. It's going to be even more difficult to do good advertising, because the customer will find ways of resisting multiple messages. You're being bombarded, it's only going to get worse. So good advertising is going to be a good business.
The next question is from Mr. Pankaj Pachauri as well as from Suhasini. A very interesting question, and he says, the mother of the media is always a print media. If it goes down, how will media survive?
welcome to the brave new world. When television came, everyone thought print is going to die. It didn't die. Now internet is coming, and people are saying that television is going to die. Not going to die. The good news is that coming from advertising, in television now more money is going to come from subscription than from advertising. Right now about 20% is from subscription and 80% from advertising, and that's the whole problem in the television industry today, because then everyone is chasing the TRP, and that's why you must have seen all these programs and all that. In UK it's already happened that after the slowdown in the world economy, the advertising on internet is increasing faster than advertising in TV and print. In India also, if you look at the internet advertising, there are so many new platforms coming up. We are also looking at advertising from internet, and not just internet, from the new platforms Suhasini was talking about. We've just launched last month a new application for iPhones and iPads in NDTV, and that's our new stream for revenue. And as you look at something like Huffington Post, please everyone here who wants to be in media, please read Huffington Post. They are based only on net advertising, and it's a very good product. It's very good content. You must read that for international news. So I'm not, though I strike a word of caution here, that what I was saying, it's not all doomsday. It's not all doomsday, there's no slash and burn. Media as an industry will keep growing as long as there are people producing goods which have to reach people. That's the basic thing. So,
the next question is from a student from the Media Management MBA. I have not got the name on it, so I don't know whether he or a she, but I'll say yes. The question is addressed to all the three members of the panel and particularly targeted at Suhasini. What according to you makes a good journalist, apart from having a passion to make a difference and wanting to make a difference? What difference?
I think I would look at it differently. The passion to make a difference maybe makes us all in the community who we are. But a good journalist, someone who can actually make that difference to his community, someone who likes to tell a story, someone who is able to have the empathy to meet new people every day, to have that excitement, and to continue to want to tell that story. So from a journalism point of view, I think that's the most important, that we have to remember that we're not the story, that we're not making up the story, but we really do want to tell the story. And that's at the crux of the communication business. I might be simplifying this a little bit for you, but I sincerely do believe that that's at the base of what most of us want to do, a desire to meet you every day, either through our writing or over the television or on the internet, and basically tell you a good story. Just to the previous question about print going away, in terms of actual numbers, India and China are the two countries where subscriptions are actually growing. These are countries where the media, the print business particularly, is still growing. In most of the West, they've either come to a full stop or have seen negative growth for the past few years. But India and China, certainly, there's a lot to feel positive about.
Very interesting question has come from a very young, newly enrolled student of BJMC. I'm glad that the name has not again been written once. It's addressed to Mr. Dilip Cherian. What are the current trends of PR industry in India, and how a good PR or a bad PR can change the image of a company or an organization? I would like to have some examples from Perfect Relations CEO.
Okay, let me answer the first part about what are the trends in PR. The second part I'm not going to answer, let me be honest, because I have absolutely no recollection of any company whose image we have turned around and I am responsible for. It's a collective effort. There are colleagues of mine and they are the ones who tell that story. But the story I want to tell you is, where is the future of PR? And the future of PR is exactly where both Suhasini and Pankaj told you. It is in specialization. Today, Perfect Relations is just a group holding company. We have a company which does work only on the internet. We have a company which does work only on CSR, corporate social responsibility. We have a company which works only in the healthcare practice. We have a company which works only on Bollywood releases. So specialization is the trend of tomorrow. We probably are a little ahead of the loop. We have companies which look at infrastructure. We have companies which are specialized. The media in it is getting specialized. The skills required are different, and the ability to understand your sector is something that is more complex than ever before, because there are global players, there are domestic players, there are regional players, and you have to understand about how they work, what they communicate, and what the constraints are. So to answer your question, the future of communications is specialization. And to answer your second question as to companies which we have turned around, whether it's a Coke, whether it's an American Express, whether it's a Punj Lloyd, there are companies whose stories are now written about and talked about, for whom work took place 5 years ago and where work still carries on. Thank you.
A very interesting question. I am sorry, I think I should have read it, but I don't feel like keeping it under the wraps. It's again from Philip Cherian. And the question is, don't you feel bad in managing the image of corrupt political parties?
You know, fortunately, corrupt political parties have two disadvantages. One is that they don't want too much spoken about them. And the second is that they don't want to pay by check. And we unfortunately pay salaries by check. So we have to take payments also by check. So the numbers of political parties who approach us are very large, but the ones who fulfill both conditions, the willingness to speak out and the ability to pay their bills in checks, are very little. So we are not in that dilemma too often.
I'm not taking the difficult questions first, I'll take the interesting questions. A very interesting question from a young BGMC entrant. My English is bad, can you improve my English, Mr. Philip Cherian?
Speak to your mother.
A lot of questions have come, a huge number of them. Probably Mr. Pankaj Pachori has stirred the hornet's nest as to don't opt for a career in filmmaking. Plenty of questions, I'm not going to read them one by one. Why do you think so that filmmaking is going down and there is no good prospects and job opportunities in filmmaking?
If your father has had 13 flop films and even after that he became a superstar, by all means join film industry. I'm talking about Amitabh Bachchan. Film industry is going through the same crisis as actually television is going through, and it is the crisis of content. The content of our films has become so formula oriented in the last 50 years that people have lost the plot. As I told you, only 10 movies in India make money these days out of 100 in a year. And we make close to 900 movies in India. So you can imagine there are how many producers and financiers who haven't recovered their money which they have put into movies. So if you are Abhishek Bachchan, by all means join film industry, because that's a good business model. And then you get to marry Aishwarya Rai also, and the three of you can be the best product brands for about 4 dozen products in the country. So if you have that kind of business model, it's fine. Otherwise, if you want to get into film making and technology of film, you want to be a camera person, you want to be a documentary maker, you want to be a set designer, and all those things, it's very tough these days. And that's precisely why, because the content is bad, that the English movies are making more money in India than our own movies. I mean, the Hindi translation of Spider-Man and Batman, and now recently Inception, they make more money than our Hindi movies, because They have good content. People have worked on them. They have invested money. They have got a plot. They have got a story to tell. That's why. If you are Abhishek Bachchan, by all means.
Another interesting question, both from Pankaj and Suhasini. Suhasini, you have CNN IBN and IBN 7. Pankaj sir, you have NDTV India and 24/7. Are you in competition with each other? Or you want to be one above the other?
You mean Pankaj and me, or the CNN IBN and the IBN 7? I'm not sure what you mean, but I think in television you might find that competition is seen as the biggest villain of the day. That because we're competing with each other, that's why our love for TRPs are sort of taking the quality of programming down. I would continue to say try and see everything, glass half full up, because that's the kind of business we're in. The competition is actually making us quicker on our toes. It's making us more initiative driven, which is a real problem, I can assure you. In this business, you will find that those who have initiative are able to barely survive. Those who don't have initiative don't have a chance. So competition for me would be a positive word. I'm not yet sure what the question actually
The question probably, I think, what I can understand is between the English and the Hindi channels.
Between the English
Maybe that probably, he wanted to communicate that, I suppose.
I think in a sense every journalist is in competition with each other. In terms of the English and Hindi genres, they have now developed in the last few years. I think we have started to take very different trajectories. I don't think that is to do with the philosophy of English journalism versus Hindi journalism. I think the philosophies are the same. But there has been a certain divergence in trajectories in the kind of programming perhaps and packaging that gets put together. My boss, I can tell you, Rajdeep Sardesai, is the editor of both CNN IBN and IBN 7. And 9 times out of 10 he will watch IBN 7. He thinks CNN IBN absolutely does not cut it when it comes to grabbing the viewer and being able to package the news to make it interesting and take it to the viewer rather than expecting the viewer to walk towards him. So as I said, in that there is a difference. In terms of the philosophy, one hopes there isn't. I mean, I don't think so.
I think if you're talking about competition with each other, I think it's absolutely fine. If the competition is better, I mean, you improve, and you have to improve, otherwise you are going to be finished in the market. That's one thing. So I really welcome when Rajdeep, who's a great colleague with me, friend, and when he left and did that, we all actually wished him good luck. Because before that, I mean, there was no competition, seriously, for NDTV. And as for the competition within the organization is concerned, I can tell you that on more than 3 occasions, our Hindi team, while setting up cameras with some minister or some VIP, the English team reached there with their own cameras. So we have that kind of competition. So because we, at times when it's a big interview, we don't tell each other. So that's what it is. I mean, within the organization, I think it's very healthy, and that's what keep two organization also in one umbrella on toes.
I'll probably read out one question. It already has been answered from Kushagra Batra. He's written the name. Can I just see your face? BJMC. Yeah. A fresh entrant. Good. He says if the film industry is not doing well, why are the actors demanding so much of money? They're paid in crores. That probably I don't know. Next question is for Mr. Dilip Cherian. Your advice to event students.
Events is probably one area where the question that was asked of me earlier about improving the English doesn't really matter, because events is about being able to be on the ground, being able to be awake for many hours on a sustained basis, and being willing to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations. So I think events is going to be a huge growth area in the future, because today most families have forgotten how to hold simple ceremonies which were household ceremonies. Even that is being outsourced to event managers. Our lives are now soon going to be treated as an event in which managers step in and step out depending on the amount of money you have to spend on the event. So I think event management has a charm for some people. It's a great career option, and among the career options that all of us have discussed, it's one where there's going to be growth in the on a sustained basis, especially for new entrepreneurs. So if you want to be a business person and set up your own business, event management is one direction to go if language is not the direction that you've gone in when you were a child.
Another very interesting question from a student of mass communication masters. With almost every media house opening their own institutes, Times, CNN, NDTV, हम कहाँ जाएंगे? I don't know who will answer this.
आप MIT आएंगे? See, it's I think same as anywhere else. When we used to have only BSNL and MTNL, the service of telephone in the country, you must have noticed. I mean, you are too young actually to know that I, as a bureau chief of the Sunday Observer, when it was being launched from Delhi, spent 3 weeks at the MTNL headquarters to get 4 lines to our new office, which is the media office. I personally did. And because my editor Vinod Mehta said that people are unable to crack it, they are asking for huge amounts of money as bribes. So if you go, they'll be scared of you and they'll do it faster. So I did that. Now you look at it, people are giving you phones free, airtime free, the service is improved so much, and similarly, if we have more competition in institutions and they are run well, there will be, I think, better students which will come out. I actually usually take classes routinely at our own institute, NDTV Media Institute, and there are only 40 people, 38 people there, and I find with each batch the kind of students which are coming are becoming sharper and sharper. And the kind of fields they are coming from. There is a electronic engineer who applied last year. I told him, you go back and join HCL or Infosys or something. I said, what are you doing here? There was an air hostess. There were people from the events management companies. There are MBAs. There are MBAs who want to join media, this thing. So our pool, the gene pool of media is getting better, and I'm really happy that that's happening. People are coming from different areas. Chennai has a very good institute, Pune has a very good institute, Bombay has many good institutes, Chandigarh has a good institute, and more the merrier. I think it will improve the quality of journalists in our country.
This is a question which is very interesting and probably needs a little debate, in which one of the students, again the course program not written, is raised a very interesting question. A journalist is taught to be true to his profession, truth, but nothing but the truth. Can he do that when it concerns 1, security, 2, editorial pressure, and 3, his channel allegiance to some party? A very interesting question. He's not addressed it to any particular, because what probably he feels is that most of the channels, they have a particular interest in a particular party, and are they as free to express themselves as media claims to be free?
I have to start by saying I must be extremely fortunate, because I haven't ever faced any pressure in terms of one political party versus another. At some level, look, I mean, you have to accept that the media must be doing something right. If we upset practically every party at some point of time, then there must be some kind of signal there that most of the media channels you watch are not biased towards one party or another. I think you might find that in a lot of times what you are mistaking as an editorial line is getting mixed up with a different party's line. And journalists have been known to take editorial lines. But more and more in this new age, I think with the kind of the market driving so much of what we do, the public driving so much of what we do in terms of revenues, I think it would be very difficult for a political party to control any media channel, any independent media channel. And certainly most of the channels that you watch, I don't think are open to that kind of pressure.
As far as truth is concerned, see, truth in India comes out in driblets. It's taken us 25 years for the Bhopal case to unravel. There's so many cases which are still lying. So truth is not like that. The kind of truth we are dealing in media is a different kind of truth. We are not judging someone. We are just giving information, digging into that information and telling you what lies between what we see and the contradictions in that. If a minister is saying that he is not corrupt, we have to dig in and find out what he did earlier, what is his track record. That's the truth. And that's, from the media terms, that's what actually the truth is. If a company is making claims about its shampoo, that it can really grow your hair 3 inches a day, we have to find a way to expose that company, that it's not on. If a corporate house is mining somewhere illegally, and the truth is that we'll say that this is the law of mining and this is what they're doing and this is what our reporter has found. So that's the truth. So that kind of truth we can always and we should bring out each time we are talking about, giving information in media. Unfortunately in media, people think it's just giving information, just giving one side of the story, which is why people also think that the media houses are biased and they are in hand in glove with some political party or other, because they do not dig enough. If you start digging in, there are so many contradictions in every information which you get, and that contradiction is actually the truth.
Right, there are a huge amount of questions still lying with me, but due to the positive time, I'll take one more question, and that's again addressed, though Mr. Dilip Cheran has already answered that question about events and PR, and the concept of image management. I think this is a lecture by itself, and maybe depending on his availability, one day I'll request him to come over and address you on this. Again, the question is from the two from the electronic media. Isn't the interest now, more interest in English journalism growing day by day? Is it going to create some threat for future prospects of Hindi journalism? Is the English journalism causing any threat to Hindi journalism?
No, I think it's the other way around. The Hindi journalism is causing a threat to the English journalism. If you look at the numbers alone, Hindi journalists reach 7 times the number of English journalists reach. But unfortunately in our country, the advertising people who sell advertising, the marketing people, they think that English speaking people have more money. Now, it's fine. And now, when more people in Jalandhar, in Nashik, in Ulhasnagar, and even in Ranchi are buying more Mercedes cars than people sitting in South Delhi and South Bombay, I think they have to change their thinking. And it's high time. So, the threat actually is from not just Hindi. The threat to even Hindi now is from regional journalism. In last 1 year, the total volume, which we say, viewership of Hindi journalism has gone down 30%, because as I told you, there are more channels coming in Telugu, in Bhojpuri, in Gujarati, in Marathi. That's why. So the future would be always, India would be like India. 18% of people, if they speak Gujarati in Maharashtra and Gujarat, it will be that important. If 50% of India understands some sort of a Hindi, then that will also be important. It's not a threat, but it's always will be distributed accordingly. I really hope, and I'd like to say it here, if any of you are from Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, what we need in this country are 2 good Santhal channels. If there are 2 good Santhal channels, the information which is going down to Santhali people in Chhattisgarh and in Jharkhand to the Naxal areas would be very good. Because this whole fight which is going on between the government and the Naxalites to give their kind of information will be fine. I'll be really good in that. I'll feel really good if there are channels in every small language, every other language. In Northeast, there should be channels in Assamese. We are right now only have channels which are in big states or the states which have lots of money, like say Kerala. Kerala is busting its seams with channels. Tamil Nadu, rich state, so many channels there. So that's going to happen, and the threat is not from English to Hindi or Hindi to English. Threat will be actually from market to market and district.
Right. I still have been getting requests that some people want to send some questions, but due to paucity of time, I'm afraid we'll have to stop here. I take this opportunity to thank the entire panel for creating such a nice ambience and answering all your questions. May I request Professor Adessa, the MC, to proceed further with whatever.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. I will now request Professor Kalyan Chatterjee to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
This is for everybody.
I would also request Professor R.K. Dagan to kindly give the souvenir to our esteemed guests today.
I must tell you, you should not join journalism for getting gifts.
They used to call them gifted journalists. On behalf of the faculty and students and the director of ASCO, I would like to thank our guests for taking time off their busy schedule to be with us, and for this very interesting and interactive session that they have had with all of us. And I'm sure the students, whether they be they the first years or be they second years or third years, whatever, students will definitely would have got a lot of practical tips from people who have been in the profession, that is the profession of media, for donkey's years. So I would again like to thank all of them for being with us. Thank you, sir.